Hello, everyone. I'm Esperanza and this is Art from the Heart at St. Augustine's Church. And today we are on to our new topic, which is the use of salt, splattering, and other techniques. So, for today's subject, we are going to paint coneflowers. So, I painted this earlier in my class. So, we are going to do it in this session as well. So, let's start. For these coneflowers, it's important that we have the proper markers in place so that we can paint it as we would want the would want the subject to be. So if we would want to achieve this type of output, we have to ensure that we have sketched our subject properly. So the first thing we have to do is to locate the middle of the flowers. And this is to have that reference on where each and every flower would be. So the first thing would be to do the first flower, the one which is closest to the viewer. And that would be this one, the first marker. And then the second marker would be here, second marker, which is the one on top of it. And then for this group of three, this is the one in front. So closest to the viewer. So we will draw this marker first, and then the next one. And then this one right behind the other two flowers and in a different direction. So now we have the markers for all 5 flowers. We shall now begin with the petals. For the petals, if you can see here, the tips have a certain spacing. Okay, let me demonstrate what I mean. So instead of drawing a full petal like that, what we do is draw it like that and then like that. So there's this space left here at the end. And then we do the same thing with the other petals. Okay. Here so that you can see. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same because flowers vary and then our perspective vary. So it might be exactly the same flower, but we might be viewing it from a slightly different perspective. So not to worry if they don't look exactly alike, if the petals are not the same in number, because right now what we're doing is not really that technical. We are not doing an exact replica of a flower in real life. So not to worry. So we sketch one flower, and the next thing is this one, another flower. See, I'm leaving the ends open so that when we paint it, there could be that space at the end. And you will see what I mean later on. And as you can see here, these are petals facing the other way. So we've done those. Now we will do this flower here, which is closest. So we've done this. Now the next one, closest to the viewer, which is this. And then here, as you can see, this is behind this petal. So when we paint it, it should be behind that petal as well. Let me just erase the excess line that I drew earlier, because instead of just having one line here, I drew two lines. So that's one line over there. So now this can be seen. And then for the last one, you can see here that the top is different in shape. So it's a different perspective. So let's, we have to do it differently because it's a different perspective. And there we go. We have all 5 flowers. Now we just need to paint the stems for the flowers. For cone flowers, several flowers are usually connected to one stem. So in this case, we will assume that these 3 belong to one stem and the rest belong to another. Now I will use another sheet of paper here to demonstrate that. I wish it was of a different color so you can actually see. But later on you will understand what I mean. So for this one, let's start with this. So assuming this is going this way, if I continue to draw the line straight on the other paper, it's going to look like that. And then this one, if I continue to draw it on the other paper, it's going to look like that. And then this one, same concept. And then the main branch. And then for this one, it's similar. So 1, 2, and then another one, and then main branch. And if we draw the leaves, so from the main branch, the leaves would come out like so, and also here, like so. And as for the other side, there would also be leaves here, like so. So if you're looking at it this way, you will see the leaves and the stems over there. However, since we are limited to this A4 sheet, we will not be drawing this, but we will be left with the flowers themselves and some of the stems. So from here, we've drawn the leaves. Now we're going to draw some stems in the background. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to draw a stem here that's similar to the one you saw earlier, like so. And then it's going, oops, sorry about that. I need to erase this. Okay, and then here. And then there's another one coming from this stem. So that one is going that way. And then we have our leaf coming from here. And then another one here at the back. And then in line with that, to keep the balance, we will do another one here. So here, let's say we have that let's say here. Okay, let me change the direction of that one. Because I think it's too wide, the angle is too wide. Let me just have a look at it from this view. Oh, I see, no, that's okay. That was okay. Okay. What I want to do here, rather, is to make it higher. I want to make that nodule higher, where it splits. Say here. And then here. And then here's the other one. And just like this one, it's going to have leaves, but the leaves are behind this flower. So that means when we draw it, it should be behind that flower. And it's the same with the leaves on this side. And now, let me see. Yes, okay. Since it's behind this flower, this part of the leaf should not be seen. So the first thing we're going to do is to paint the flower. Prior to that, we're going to paint the background. So now, what we have to do, since we've already done the sketch, we've completed the sketch, and this is our goal. What we're going to do is to paint the whole thing with water. And yes, just with water. And this might roll, yes, as I was just saying. Okay, usually masking tape would be a good idea to hold it down. Okay, during our next session, we might need to use a masking tape to hold the art piece down. Okay, but for now, we have to settle with it like this. And next is our round brush. So I'm gonna take some blue paint now, just some blue paint, and mix that blue paint with water. And then I'm just gonna paint this area over here. Now, if it's too dry, I'm just going to add some water, because what I want to achieve here would be some sort of a feathering effect, which would really appear to look very soft and gentle and subtle. Oh, by the way, do not paint the flowers. We'll try to avoid the flowers, but if you do, it's fine. When we paint over them, you will see that the background would affect the tone, but it won't completely affect the flower. Okay, we're going to paint the lower part blue as well. And that's okay. We can paint the stem, the leaves blue, because once we paint green over those items, it's just going to be darker. That because the tone of the blue would be carried through the paint that we will be using over it. Okay, now I think we've done a great job. Okay. Okay, we've done a great job. We painted the background. Now we just have to let it dry a little bit before we start painting the petals. And that is because we don't want it to bleed onto the paper. But looking at the weather, since it's warm and dry, I don't think we have to wait for a long time. So let me just clean this space so that we don't get any unwanted colors. And here, okay, I will now start painting the red areas. So for our red area, I'm just going to get some red paint and just paint parts of the petals, just parts of the petals with red. Now, if your paint is very thin or very light, you might need to do this twice or thrice, depending on the need. So we're starting to see the shape of the petals. And as you can see, I'm just following the direction of the sketch. Okay, now I'm gonna rinse my brush and brush the other end of the petals with water. And I am going to spread the paint. Oops, sorry. I am going to spread the paint to the whole petal. So those areas that we didn't paint earlier, those which were left white or too red, now we're going to spread this paint. Okay, if there are some areas which are still white or darker, that's okay. Leave it as it is. This is to create that softer, more natural look for the petals. Okay, here we have too much water, so I'm just going to lift that. And then here, spread that a little bit. And then just let it dry. Now, we'll do the same thing for the rest of the flowers. Okay. So now I will just rinse the brush. As I mentioned, just do the same thing. So just add water. And that's just to soften it. Some areas like this wouldn't even really need it. Okay, so now we've painted the red coat on this flowers. As I mentioned, if it's quite thin, if the concentration of the red paint is quite thin, you might need to do it twice. But in this case, I think we've done a very good job. The next color that we will be painting would be violet. And violet would further define those lines on the flower. I think I need to add more violet paint on my palette. I love coneflowers. They're just so beautiful. Okay, and we start with our brush here. So just like that, just like lines. It's to give your flowers dimension. And I think there's too much paint there, but later on we will lift that. Okay. I know this paper is going round and round. The reason is I am trying to paint the proper shape of the petals, which is difficult for me to do if it's facing the other direction. But I do hope that you can see what I am trying to do here. It's just really lines here going to the outward direction. There we go. If you can see that. Again, it's just to define the shape of the flower. Now it's our chance to lift that and even use the excess color, excess of the pigment to um, to paint the other petals. So wow, it feels strange. It probably feels much darker here right now. And then, okay, so now we have the violet bit. Now we will go back to our friend red. Yes, so we need some red paint. Okay, so we're gonna make some with water. And now we are going to paint around this bit. And then we're just going to allow this red paint to spread on our petals. There we go. And on our last flower, we do the same. Now, if it doesn't spread, then we have to help it spread. And that would be done, in this case, just by adding water to our paint. So we just have to rinse our brush, add some water, and paint water here on the outer part of that red ring. There we go. Same here. So that the spread of the paint looks softer, so that it looks more natural. It's important for it to look natural because that also makes it look more spontaneous and cleaner. Okay, so we've done that bit. We can now begin with the middle portion of the flower. And with that, we need to paint it with yellow ochre. So we begin here. We can actually begin at any flower. And I suggest you choose one which is the driest to prevent any bleeding of colors. But if the colors bleed, that's all right. Do not worry. Like this one, do not worry. That's all right. It would make it look more natural. Do not attempt to um, make any major changes on your flower just because there's a bleed. Don't. Just own it. Try to see the beauty in it. and go on. Continue with your flower. I think I have too much paint here. And the reason for that is not because I've created the puddle. I'm not worried about the puddle. Okay, I am worried about the puddle. I'm not worried about the bleeding, but rather the puddle, because it would take quite a while to dry. And that's why I've lifted the excess paint. Now, we need a little bit of burnt umber. Believe me, we are getting there. And we need much more water for this. One moment. Yes, there we go. Make sure that your paint is mixed with enough water so that it can flow smoothly. So here I'm just now painting it with burnt umber. And here, just painting around it. And here as well. Just painting burnt umber on the area which we painted yellow ochre. I think we're doing a good job. However, it doesn't end there. Okay, there's a puddle here. I'm gonna lift it, but after lifting it, I think we've taken too much paint off. So I'm going to paint it again with burnt umber. Oh, there we go. That is perfect. And then now it's for the time for the magic ingredient. So what's the magic ingredient today? Today's magic ingredient is salt. Yes, just regular table salt. So we'll go back to our painting. And we're going to get a small amount of salt and just put some there on that part of the flower which we painted yellow ochre and burnt umber. And that is to create that texture that the cornflower has in that part of the flower. Yes. So that we don't have to paint those small details. The salt will do the work for us. Now, if you have extra salt spreading on the petals, that's okay. Just let it spread. Do not worry so much. Okay. Wonderful. As you can see here, the concentration of the paint is changing as you drop the salt on the painting. Now we have an idea of how it would look. However, this is not the final product. We will only see it once the art piece is completely dry. Okay, so now our art piece has salt on it, and we can now start on painting the stems. Yes, so to paint the stems, we need green. So since I've already run out of green paint, I would need to mix blue and yellow. There we go. And yes, now I have green. So I will do the stems first, and the stems which are behind everything. So the stems which we are using for the background would be first. And then real quickly, we paint it with green. Well done us, we've done one of them. And then we are off to the next one. And then here's the next one. Again, we're doing it quite quickly. Do take your time if you're doing this at home. You can switch the you can stop this video at any time if you feel that you want to stop it, or you can also play it from the beginning or from any point that you would want to see the video from. So we're now done with the background stems. Let me just add some paint here because I think the colors are not even. Okay, I think that's much better. And I painted one of the stem of one of the flowers. And I will continue by painting the stems of the rest of the flowers. Aha. And here, as you can see, the stem can be seen on the leaf. So I better gently erase it and carefully so that we don't get any of the paint on the eraser. Okay, that's good. So we didn't get all of it out. We should have done that earlier, but I apologize. I missed that one. And then here, we just paint the rest of the stems. And then we're done with the stems. Well, at this point, until the next layer, which would be burnt umber, which we will paint on the sides of all the stems, because now we are trying to create the illusion of the dimension of the stems. So this will help it achieve somewhat a cylindrical shape. And how do we do that? Okay, after this piece, okay, okay, after that stem, we will rinse our brush thoroughly and then just paint this middle bit with water. Just with water. We don't have to be able to spread the brown paint yet, but if we can, then that's all right. Because that is the goal. So that the brown paint spreads towards the middle bit and the green paint spreads towards the side. And that would give an effect that the stem is more cylindrical in shape. So the sides are further from the viewer and the middle part closer to the viewer. Yes. Now I'm just lifting the excess paint. So if you can see, if we compare it to this stem, this looks flat and this starting to have dimension. Later on, it will have more dimensions when we add some more color to it. Okay, so let's do the other stem. Okay, let's finish that. Oops. No, that's too wide. I have to lift some of the paint there. And lifting that would entail the use of a kitchen towel. Because I want it to be really clean. Now it's time to brush water on top. There we go. Just water, and those can be brushed. You brush it. And now we spread the brown paint. And again, don't worry if it's not spread equally, because to give that dimension, some areas should be lighter than others. And that's one reason why it's okay for the color not to spread equally, because the darker areas would then appear to be further than the lighter areas. So now we've done two of the background stems. We're now off to the third background stem. Or rather, not the background stem. We're no longer on the background stem, but on the main stems for the flowers. Okay. Okay, so we continue painting the stems. Yes, as you can see, I keep on cleaning the area and removing the excess watercolor, because I don't want any unnecessary color taking on our art piece. And as you can see here, the brown paint, some areas are not continuous lines, so they are broken lines, and that's okay, because when we spread it, it's going to appear more or less well distributed. So this one is first, then we add water to this. So very nice. It's spreading even if we don't add too much water. Okay, for this one, we might need to add a little bit more water to help it. Okay, so now we have the flowers and the stems. Now I'm going to create further dimension by using black. And we will start with the flowers. Okay, let's start with this one in the middle. Remember, the sunlight is coming from here, so that means the shadows are in this area. And then I'm gonna do the same thing here with this flower. Yes, with the black paint, it's looking even much better. And then we continue with this one. You can see the paint move through the salt. And then we'll work on the other flowers as well. And then the last one. Wow, we're getting there. Well, we're almost finished because I think this is the part which requires most attention. And then, here we go. Now we just have to make sure that our brush is clean before we continue, because we will now have to spread this black paint. Okay, we started here earlier, so we're just going to drop some water on it, and here as well. There we go. And then here as well. So I'm just dropping water on everything that we've highlighted with black. And what we're trying to do now at this point is just to soften the effect of the black paint, yet retain the dimensions it has created. So there we go. And if there's any excess paint, you should lift that. And then here. And then we go here to this one. And now we have dimensions we need for our flowers. I think we've overdone the spreading of the black paint here, so we would need to add a little more to this particular one. Yes, and I think that should be fine now. Now we're going to do something similar to the stem. So we begin with this stem, but again we have to be mindful of the direction of the light. Because since our light is coming from this area, the shadows would be on this side. And again, same procedure. We get some water, and then we paint it with water. we go. And then there we are. Finish with the shadow of one stem. And then off to the next one. Again, same procedure. We just draw a line here in black. And it doesn't have to be even. It can be thick or thin. Oops, one moment. I think that's too thick. So we can, oh, there we go. And please do be mindful of the leaves as well, the position of the leaves. We shouldn't be painting shadows over them. But at this point, we can still make the relevant corrections if they're necessary. So now we've done the shadow for this one. Oh, beautiful. That's just beautiful. So now 2 stems finished. Now we are just going to do the same thing for the stems connected to the flowers. So this is one, and then another one here, and then another one here. And then we're going to rinse our brush. Same procedure, exactly same procedure. So we're going to paint the stem with water. To allow the colors to mix. And then we're going to brush it. There we go. And there's our stem with shadows. Fantastic. Now it's time for the leaves. So we're just going to paint the leaves now. Really simple. And as you can see here, the background really does affect the tone of the leaves, but that's good because our background is blue. Actually, for leaves, any background is okay, as long as they're not too intense. Okay, we're getting there quite quickly. Okay, there's her leaves. And the last leaf, wow. Oops, I think there's too much paint there. And then now, we need to darken our leaf a little bit. Oh dear. I think I've darkened it a little too much, so I'm gonna add some more lemon yellow. And now I think it's too light again. So I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow ochre. Wow, that is beautiful now. That is beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to paint the ribs of the leaf. As you can see here, because the leaves are wet, the paint is spreading naturally. However, in certain leaves, which are dry, just like the one I'm doing right now, when you paint it, the color doesn't spread by itself. And for such cases, we need to help such leaves or such objects. And we can do that by painting the object with water. Okay, let me just finish this. And for areas that needs painting with water, we will do that. And that is because we don't want to see lines in the leaves like this, but we want to see more natural shapes. Oh, for this one, it's too wet, so it really didn't show any such shape that we want. So what we're going to do, if that's the case, is just to lift the paint. And this one, similar, we're going to lift in this area, and on the dry area, we're just going to wet it a little bit to allow it spread. And then for this one, we need to paint the edges with water. There we go. And painting it with water would allow it to look softer and more natural. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting through almost all of the leaves now. There we go. Okay. Now, here again, we have too much water. We're going to lift to prevent that puddle from forming. We'll spread it there. Okay, so now we can see shapes in our leaves. And similar to the stems, we need to put the greater depth of dimension. So we are going to paint some areas of the leaves with black. And again, we have to be mindful that the light is coming from this area. So when we paint it, okay, when we paint it, we should always be conscious of that direction of light. And we're going to do the same thing that we did earlier. And that is to spread the black paint later on. There we go. And again, we're not painting solid black lines, but what we're trying to do is to find the darker areas. And those areas are the ones that we paint black. Those are the areas which are further away or covered by something. Okay, one more leaf to go. Wow, I think we've done a great job with the leaves. And once the leaves are finished, we just have to the background, and we're good to go. So this one we just add water. Still, the green paint should have already dried, and the shape of the leaf should have already been retained. Okay, and this one same. And then again, some areas painted with black would be darker than others. And that's okay, because some should appear farther, some should appear smaller. Okay. There we go, creating that further dimension. A more realistic touch to our painting. Though it's quite impressionist, it would give us that more realistic rather than a surrealist perspective. Okay, so we just spread the black paint like that. And if again, this is in any painting, if there's too much paint, don't hesitate to lift the paint. Okay, and then this will be an interesting bit later on. And then this one, we spread it like that. Again, some areas would be darker than others. I know there's a lot of rotating of this sheet going on, but it's absolutely necessary. My apologies for that. And that is to achieve the final outcome that we would want to achieve. So when you're doing this at home, feel free to rotate the sheet. Actually, not only this, but for all your other artworks, feel free to move the artwork according to what is comfortable to you. Now, I told you earlier that this bit is interesting, and that is because the black paint has bled into the yellow ochre. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to lift all the black paint, and then I'm gonna get some yellow ochre and then paint this with yellow ochre. Okay, now lastly, we need to do the background of our paint. Yes, I just added yellow ochre to my green paint. And then I am going to add some more water. And then, oops, I touched the paper with my dirty hands. So I stained it with paint, and that's okay. We can lift the paint. Now we paint the area that we would like to paint with light green or yellow green with some water to give it that flat wash. And remember, since we painted the background with blue previously, areas which has those blue paint would affect the tone of the background. So this area, again, we should paint with water first. Otherwise, we will see the brush strokes. And for some areas, we wouldn't want to see those brush strokes. Oh, you were doing very well. And we're really almost finished now. I think this is one of the longest videos I have done. But again, if you feel that you would want to continue it at a later time, feel free to pause it and come back to it. And there we go. That's our cone flowers with background. And we painted it using this area, using salt to create the effect that we want. So thank you very much, everyone. And I hope you enjoyed this session, even if it's a bit longer than our usual sessions. And hope to see you on the next session where we'll do more of flowers, and I will teach you more techniques that you can apply to your paintings. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.